Alright, this is section 2.6, linear inequalities. So I made a chart here for you to tell you how to write the answers to linear inequalities. So here's the individual inequality written symbolically. Then here's it written as a number line. Here is an interval, and here is set builder notation. So notice when you have strictly greater than or less than, you use a parentheses, not a bracket. So less than is parentheses. Equal to as well is a bracket. Less than is parentheses. Equal to is a bracket. And the fact that you use a parentheses on the 5 means you use a parentheses on the 5 here. The fact that you use a bracket there means you use a bracket here as well on the 5. Never put a bracket on infinity or minus infinity. Those always have parentheses. Then the set builder notation is just these funky braces with x in this line there, and then right after the line is just whatever your inequality is. So you just plug the inequality into that format. Right? So example 1, they ask you to write the answer as a number line. So x greater than 0, you put a parenthesis at 0 and shade to the right. Notice it's like an arrow head, the head of an arrow pointing to the right. As long as you have x on the left, this will tell you which direction to shade on the number line. Now x greater than or equal to 0, and that means you have a bracket at 0 and you go to the right. X less than -1 means less than or equal to -1 means you have a bracket at -1, and you're arrowing to the left. Notice the arrow is pointing leftward, and that's the way you shade. Then x is less than 3, that's a parentheses at 3 and everything to the left. And example 2 asks you to write it as an interval notation. So greater than 4 is parentheses 4 to infinity parentheses. Okay, and y is less than or equal to -3. That means from minus infinity to 3 with a bracket on the -3 and a parentheses on the minus infinity. And then greater than or equal to -1, that's a bracket at and -1, infinity and parentheses. Now they ask you, is x a solution? So you plug in 6 into it and see if you get a true statement. When you multiply it out, you get 14 is less than 10. That's not true. So x is equals 6 is not a solution. So then is x minus 2 a solution? So you plug in -2 into the problem and you get 8 is less than or equal to 8. Well, 8 is not less than 8, but it is equal to 8, so that is true. So x equals -2 is a solution. This one they give you a table of values and they ask you to answer the question for the different equations or inequalities. So they plug in 0 into the equation and get -6, plug 1 into this and get -4, plug 2 into this and get -2, and so on. So they ask you, where does 2x minus 6 equal 0? Well, it equals 0 right there when x equals 3. Well, where is 2x minus 6 greater than 0? Well, it's greater than 0 for anything over here, so it's greater than 3. Where is it greater than or equal to 0? Well, you know it's equal to 0 at 3 and greater than 0 for greater than 3, so we say greater than or equal to 3. Where is it less than 0? Less than 0 is anything smaller than 3, so x less than 3. Here they ask you to solve it and write a solution as a number line, so you remember the only thing you have to worry about when solving linear inequalities, it's exactly the same rules as we've been using for equations, except when multiplying or dividing by a negative number, you flip the inequality sign. So you have to have multiplying by a negative or dividing by a negative. That's when you flip the inequality. That's the only difference. Okay, so here we add 1 and we get our answer and we write down our solution on the number line. Here we subtract x and we get this guy here, and then you subtract 3 and you get this guy here, and there's your answer. So far we haven't had to flip the inequality sign. Okay, so in this one you multiply everything by 2 to get rid of your fractions. You add x and you get 2x. You subtract 10 and you get 2x is less than or equal to -4. Divide by 2 and you get x is less than or equal to -2, so -2 and everything to the left. Okay, here you divide by 3 and you get this answer and you write it down as an interval. Here you multiply by -2 and you get this guy here. And now this, from here to here, this is not invoking that rule. This is just a rewrite. 14 is greater than or equal to x, the same thing as x is less than or equal to 14. Right? Let's say I'm older than you. I can say I am older than you, or you can say, or I can say, you are younger than me. That's the same thing as this here. X greater than or equal to X, and X is less than 14. And that's your answer there. Now here you add 7, divide by 4, you get your answer right as a set builder notation. Here you subtract 5, add 8, and now here's where you have to finally divide by a negative 1 or multiply by a negative. So we divide by a negative 1 and we flip the inequality sign. Now it's greater than. And that's our answer there. Here we multiply by 0.4 and we get this, and then we multiply by 10 to get rid of all our decimals. We move the 11x over, we move the 20 over, we divide by negative 3, and because we just divided by a negative, we flip the inequality sign, and that's our set builder notation answer. Okay, now here they give you a revenue, cost, and profit function. So revenue is always your selling price times X. Cost is always the cost to make 1 unit times X plus your fixed cost. Fixed cost is the cost to start up the business, like buying a building, buying the machinery, buying all the flour, sugar, whatever, if you're at a donut shop or whatever. Okay, now profit is simply revenue minus cost. Make sure you put costs in parentheses, and when you drop the parentheses, you distribute that negative sign properly. So the computers cost $13.20, so that means cost to make them. Fixed cost is $200,000. Selling price is $18.50. So first, the revenue is your price times X, so $18.50 times X. Your cost is the cost to make 1 times X plus your fixed cost, so it's these two numbers with the X there. Your profit is simply the difference between the two, and when you drop your parentheses, you distribute, and these two become negative, and you can combine those two, and now you got your profit function. Now they ask you, you want to make a profit or you want to not lose money, so you force your profit to be greater than 0, and you add 200,000, divide by 530, and you get X greater than or equal to 377.36, or if you sell 378 or more, you are making a profit. Now the other way you can do it is you can say revenue is greater than cost, which is this equation here, and when you solve it, you get the same answer. So you can solve it either way. Doesn't matter. Okay, so 2.6, similar equations, similar questions. These are the questions in the same order. You'll see them on your homework assignment. So the first one, they ask you, is this a solution to this? So you plug in -4 into this. I plugged in a -4 there. I didn't have to use parentheses around it, but here when you're multiplying by a negative, you want to put parentheses, otherwise it looks like subtraction. So when you multiply everything out, you get this guy here, and if you want to know if this is true, indicate where -19 and -15 are, and the smaller number is always on the left. So -19 is smaller than -15, so this is not a true statement. So that is not a solution. Alright? So this one, they ask you to write that as an inequality. That's what, less than 0. I believe it's shading to the left. Yeah. So it's X less than 0. 25, they ask you to write the inequality in interval notation, so it's 6 to infinity, including the 6 with a bracket there. Less than 7, so you're going to put a bracket on the 7, and you're going to minus infinity. And Z less than -5, so you put a parentheses there. You're not including -5. There's no equality here, whereas there was equality on these two. On this one, you subtract 3, divide by negative, and when you do that, you flip the inequality sign, and there's your answer. Add 1, subtract 5, divide by -1. We just divided by a negative, so we flip the inequality sign, and that's our answer from minus infinity to -5. Okay, and this one, you have a fraction, so multiply by -2, and the fact that I multiplied by a negative, I flipped the inequality sign. Divide by -5, you flip the inequality sign, that's your answer. Add 3, divide by 2, and so X is less than 6. Okay. This one you multiply by 14, you get rid of all your fractions there. And then you add 2x, subtract 4, divide by 8. And you get this inequality, and that's how you write it in set builder notation. Here you multiply by 21 every term, whether it has a fraction or not. Then you get this, subtract 7x, divide by 11, and there's your answer. This one shows you a rectangle with width x and length x plus 5, and they ask you what value of x is the perimeter less than 50. So the perimeter is 2L plus 2W, and your L is x plus 5, and your W is x. Multiply those out and combine like terms, you get this. So this is your perimeter. And you want your perimeter to be less than 50. So there's your inequality. Subtract 10, divide by 4. So x less than 10 will create a perimeter less than 50. Okay, 105. I believe that's a word problem. They ask you, a student scores 74 out of 100 on a test. If the maximum score on the next test is also 100 points, what score does the student need to maintain an average of 80? So, to take the average of scores, you just add the scores and divide by the number of them. So 2 scores, you divide by 2, and you want it to be greater than 80. So you solve that inequality by multiplying by 2, gets rid of your denominator and just get the numerator. And there that doubles. Subtract 74, and so you have to get 86 or above to average at 80 or higher. 110, car rental charges $20 plus 50 cents, 25 cents per mile, and the other one charges just $37 a day. And so they say, for what mileage is the second a better deal? So for what mileage is the second one, is this one less than that one? To be a better deal, it's got to be cheaper. So you subtract 20, divide by 0.25, so less than 68 miles, the second agency is a better deal. Okay. 111, they give you the cost of a compact disc is $1.50, fixed cost of $2,000, and they're selling it for $12. So your revenue is selling price times X. Your cost is the cost to make 1 times X plus your fixed cost of $2,000. So you get these guys, and when you do R minus C and you drop the parentheses, you distribute that negative sign and combine like terms, and so there you go, you get cost, revenue, and profit. So they say when is how to get a positive profit, so greater than 0. So you subtract 2,000, divide by 10.5. And so if you sell 191 units or more, you're going to make a profit. 115 says the temperature given by T equals 90 minus 19x, where x is the number of miles above the Earth. And they want you to know for what altitude is the temperature less than 4.5. So you force the temperature to be less than 4.5. The original formula is T equals 90 minus 19x. X is how many miles into the atmosphere you are, or miles high, and T is the temperature. So if your temperature is 4.5, you want this to be less than that. So you subtract 90, divide by negative 19, and so x is greater than 4.5. And that makes sense, because the higher in altitude you go, the colder it gets. 116, you got the weight of a fish is based on this equation, where x is the inches in length of the fish. They say what length will give you a weight of 7.2, so you plug in 7.2 for W and you solve it, you get 22.5. Then they say what length of fish is likely to weigh less than 7.2 inches, 7.2 pounds. Well, the length less than 22.5 is likely to weigh less than 7.2, because this is how long in length 7.2 pounds is, so the shorter it gets, the less it weighs. Then question 20, this is out of the homework assignment because I couldn't find a similar question out of the homework out of the book. So they ask you to rewrite this using interval notation, so x greater than or equal to 3. That means bracket 3 to infinity.